They didn't ask her how she felt. They didn't give her a choice. She was just a solution to someone else's problem. And then, a burden no one wanted to carry. So she ran, pregnant, alone, into a wilderness that mirrored how she felt inside. But it was there, in the silence, in the sand, in the breaking. She was seen by the only one who truly mattered. This is Hagar's story. And maybe, just maybe, it's yours too. Her name was Hagar. But before she was known by her pain, she was known by her position, an Egyptian servant in the house of Sarah, the wife of Abraham. We don't know her family. We don't know her dreams. What we do know is this: she was a woman caught in the tides of someone else's destiny. It's believed Hagar was acquired when Abraham and Sarah went to Egypt during a famine. Abraham lied, calling Sarah his sister. Pharaoh, thinking she was unmarried, took her into his palace. When the truth emerged, Pharaoh released them, but not empty-handed. Servants, livestock, wealth. And Hagar may have been part of that gift. She was given, traded, absorbed into a household not of her choosing. A young Egyptian woman, now a servant in a Hebrew home. In that time, servants had no rights, especially female servants. If a mistress was barren, like Sarah, tradition allowed her to give her maid to her husband to bear children. It was legal, normal, but not just. Hagar had no say. And one day, Sarah made a request. "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." And Abraham agreed. Suddenly, Hagar was no longer just a servant. She was a surrogate, not a wife, not an equal, a vessel. And when she became pregnant, the power dynamic shifted. Scripture says she began to despise Sarah. Maybe it wasn't pride. Maybe it was pain. Sarah retaliated. Abraham turned his back. "She's your servant. Do with her whatever you think best." So Sarah dealt harshly with her. And Hagar did what many women still do today. She ran. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't have a plan. She just ran. Because anything was better than staying. The desert is a lonely place. But sometimes, the loneliness is safer than the abuse. Pregnant, exhausted, uncertain. She fled south toward Shur, a desolate stretch of land between Canaan and Egypt. Maybe she was trying to go home, back to Egypt, back to familiarity. But even that wasn't guaranteed. Slaves don't just return. And in the vast wilderness, a young woman alone was as good as dead. Days without shelter, nights without peace. The hot wind biting her skin by day, and the chill of the dark reminding her just how alone she was. But it wasn't just a physical wilderness. This was emotional exile, spiritual isolation. Hagar wasn't just running from Sarah. She was running from shame, from rejection, from a world that told her she was nothing more than someone else's property. And then, at her breaking point, she finds a spring, a little pocket of mercy in the middle of nowhere. Or maybe the spring found her, because that's where he met her. Not Abraham, not Sarah, not a rescuer from Egypt or a stranger with kind eyes. The angel of the Lord. This wasn't just any messenger. Many scholars believe this was a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ himself. And his first words, not a lecture, not a condemnation, but a question that pierced her soul. "Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" He calls her by name. He names her position, but he does not shame her. He sees her. She had no map, no destination. But God wasn't asking for a geographical answer. He was inviting her to tell the truth about her pain, her past, her fear. And then He gives her a promise no human ever gave her. You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. Ishmael means God hears. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't forgotten. Her pain had registered in heaven. And suddenly, the wilderness didn't feel quite so empty. Because in the place where no one was supposed to find her, God came looking. Her hands were still trembling. Her eyes still stung from the sun and the tears. But her heart was shifting. He had found her. He came close, to a servant, a runaway, a pregnant woman with no protection and no power. And Hagar, who had been used, tossed aside and forgotten, did something no one else in Scripture had ever done before. She gave God a name. You are the God who sees me. ELROI. Can you feel the weight of that? This wasn't theology. It wasn't doctrine. It was a personal, lived-out revelation. Not just God sees all, but He sees me. Every bruise I've hidden, every tear I've swallowed, every moment I thought no one cared if I made it through the night. He saw it. He saw me. Have I truly seen the one who sees me? She said in wonder. In that wilderness, where her life felt most wasted, Hagar experienced something sacred, the eyes of God, not judging her, not avoiding her, but locking eyes with her soul. She walked back to Sarah, yes. But not as the same woman. She returned with a name in her mouth and a promise in her womb. She returned carrying Ishmael, a living reminder that God hears. And etched on her heart was a divine truth that no one could ever take from her. I am seen. Time passed. Ishmael grew. And eventually so did Isaac, the miracle son of Sarah. And just when life seemed to find a rhythm, the tension returned. It resurfaced at a celebration, the weaning of Isaac. Sarah saw Ishmael, a teenager now, laughing, and something inside her snapped. The old jealousy, the bitterness, the fear, and she demanded that Hagar and Ishmael be cast out. Get rid of that slave woman and her son, she said. Abraham was distressed. This was his son too. But God told him to let them go, and just like that, she was sent into the wilderness again, this time not running, but rejected. She carried only bread and a skin of water, a mother now walking through the desert with her boy. No destination, no hope, just sand, silence, and heartbreak. When the water ran out, Hagar knew what was coming. The scripture says in Genesis 21 that she placed her son under a bush and walked away, because she couldn't bear to watch him die. Let that settle in. A mother, kneeling in the sand, sobbing alone. Not because she didn't love her son, but because she loved him too much to watch him suffer. I cannot watch the boy die. And then, heaven moved. Genesis 21:17 says, God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven. God heard. Again. The same God who found her the first time didn't forget her the second. He called her by name again. He opened her eyes, and in front of her, a well of water. It had been there all along. She just couldn't see it, until God opened her eyes. Because when your soul is drowning in despair, even hope can be invisible. But God didn't let her drown. He didn't let Ishmael die. He reaffirmed the promise. I will make him into a great nation. Hagar's story isn't polished. It's messy, painful, real, but it's also proof that being seen by God is greater than being accepted by man, that you can be cast out by people and still called in by heaven, that your wilderness isn't where your story ends. It's where God writes a new beginning. For every woman who's been used and discarded, for every mother who's wept in silence, For every soul who's wandered the desert of despair, there is a God who hears, a God who sees, a God who meets you not after the pain, but in it. If you've ever felt invisible, forgotten, thrown aside, you are not alone. There is a God who sees you, just like he saw her. ELROI, not the God who glances, the God who sees.